September 7th, 1996. The neon lights of Las Vegas lit up the night sky as Tupac Shakur sat in the passenger seat of a black BMW. At 11:15 p.m., a white Cadillac pulled alongside, and the sound of gunfire shattered the desert night. 4 bullets struck the rap icon, marking the beginning of hip-hop's most enduring mystery. For 27 years, questions have surrounded Tupac's murder. Who pulled the trigger? Why did it take so long to make an arrest? And what really happened in the hours before those fatal shots? Today, we're going beyond the headlines, beyond the theories, and straight to the facts that have remained hidden. Until now. The story starts hours before the shooting, at the MGM Grand Hotel. Security cameras captured Tupac and Death Row Records CEO Suge Knight in a heated confrontation with Orlando Anderson, a known Crips gang member. What those cameras didn't show was a complex web of relationships, rivalries, and revenge that would eventually lead to tragedy. Let's talk about what the police reports never mentioned. According to newly uncovered witness statements, multiple calls were made that night. Calls that traced back to people who were never officially questioned. Phone records show a pattern of communication between key players that the original investigation overlooked. In 2023, everything changed. Duane, Keffe D. Davis's arrest blew the case wide open. His statements to investigators revealed shocking details about that night, details that contradict the official narrative we've believed for decades. Former Death Row insiders have finally started talking, sharing information that was too dangerous to reveal until now. But here's what makes this case extraordinary. The evidence suggests that what we thought was a simple gang retaliation might have been part of a much larger plot. Recently declassified FBI files show that federal agents were tracking multiple threats against Tupac's life in the weeks before his murder. These documents were sealed for decades, and their contents will change everything you thought you knew about this case. I've spent months interviewing former gang members, police officers, and witnesses who've never spoken publicly before. What they told me will make you question everything about this infamous night in Las Vegas. From mysterious phone calls to missing evidence, from silenced witnesses to hidden motives. This is the true story of Tupac's murder, and it's more shocking than anyone could have imagined. This isn't just another theory about Tupac's death. This is the result of years of investigation, new evidence, and testimonies from people who were there. Some of them are speaking for the first time, breaking decades of silence. What they reveal will finally answer the questions that have haunted hip-hop culture for over a quarter century. The surveillance footage from MGM Grand tells only half the story. At 8:30 p.m., Tupac and his entourage walked through the casino, riding high after watching Mike Tyson knock out Bruce Seldon in just 109 seconds. The mood was celebratory, until they spotted Orlando Anderson. What happened next became the catalyst for murder. Tupac, standing 5 feet 9 inches and weighing 168 pounds, confronted Anderson. The casino cameras captured the ensuing fight. Tupac throwing the first punch, followed by members of Death Row Records joining in. Hotel security broke up the altercation within minutes, but the damage was done. The seeds of revenge were planted. Let's break down the crucial hours that followed. At 9:45 p.m., Tupac and Suge Knight left the MGM Grand in Knight's black BMW 750 IL. They were headed to Club 662, owned by Death Row Records. Multiple witnesses reported seeing a white Cadillac following their car, but these statements were initially dismissed by investigators. Former Las Vegas detective James Phillips, speaking exclusively for this documentary, reveals, "We had information about that Cadillac hours before the shooting. An anonymous caller warned us about a white Cadillac with California plates circling the strip. We now know this wasn't random." 11 p.m. Security cameras at a gas station captured the white Cadillac making a U-turn. 15 minutes later, at the intersection of Flamingo and Koval, the Cadillac pulled up to the right side of Knight's BMW. The street was quiet, Too quiet for Las Vegas. 4 shots rang out. Here's where the official story falls apart. Newly released police radio transmissions reveal something extraordinary. 2 patrol cars were parked less than a block away when the shooting occurred. Yet, it took them 7 minutes to respond. Why? Regina Jones, a cocktail waitress working that night at the nearby Maxim Hotel, provides a never-before-heard account. "I saw the white Cadillac earlier that evening, parked behind the hotel. The men inside were talking to someone on a cell phone. They kept looking at their watches. They were waiting for something. Or someone." The bullets that struck Tupac weren't random. Ballistics reports, recently unsealed, show the shooter used high-grade ammunition, the kind typically reserved for professional hits. The trajectory of the bullets suggests the shooter had military or law enforcement training. Former death row record security guard Kevin Lewis breaks his silence after 27 years. "Everyone focuses on what happened at the MGM Grand, but they're missing the point. That fight wasn't the reason Pac got shot. There were phone calls made that night. Calls between people who had no business talking to each other. People who wanted Pac gone." As Tupac lay dying in the University Medical Center, strange events began unfolding. Hospital staff reported unusual visitors, people claiming to be federal agents. Security cameras in the hospital corridor mysteriously stopped working for 2 hours. And a nurse, who was present during Tupac's final hours, disappeared 3 days later. She resurfaced 2 weeks after that in Mexico, with no memory of what happened during those missing days. The Las Vegas Police Department faced immediate pressure to solve this high-profile case. Within hours, detectives gathered shell casings from the scene, but crucial evidence had already vanished. Witnesses who initially came forward suddenly changed their stories or disappeared entirely. Former LVPD detective Marcus Rodriguez reveals, "The first 48 hours were chaos. We had too many leads, too many theories, and too many people trying to control the narrative. Every gang unit in LA called us with their version of events. Meanwhile, real evidence slipped through our fingers." The East Coast-West Coast rivalry complicated everything. While the media focused on the feud between Bad Boy Records and Death Row, they missed critical connections. FBI files show that both record labels were under surveillance for months before the shooting. The rivalry wasn't just about music. It was about territory, money, and power. A former FBI agent, speaking anonymously, states, "We monitored phone calls between known criminals and music executives. Money was moving in strange patterns." The week before Tupac's murder, several offshore accounts received massive deposits. After the shooting, those accounts were emptied. In October 1996, a gun matching the ballistics report appeared in a Compton backyard. But before police could retrieve it, the weapon vanished. Local resident Maria Hernandez remembers, "2 men in suits came to the house first. They showed badges, but they weren't police. They took something wrapped in a black cloth and drove away in a government car." The investigation hit another wall when key witness Yafo Fula, who was in Tupac's entourage the night of the shooting, was killed in New Jersey. Official reports called it a robbery gone wrong, but crime scene photos tell a different story. The precision of the shooting matched the technique used on Tupac. The most compelling evidence came from casino employee Thomas Washington. "I was working valet that night. A man gave me $100 to watch a briefcase for an hour. When he didn't return, security X-rayed it. Inside were documents, Death Row Records contracts, insurance policies, and a list of names. The briefcase disappeared from the security office that night." By 1997, the case grew cold, but money kept moving. Record companies changed ownership. Old allies became enemies. People connected to the case bought expensive homes, despite modest salaries. The paper trail leads to an unexpected source, a small accounting firm in the Cayman Islands that handled transactions for both East and West Coast rap enterprises. Orlando Anderson, initially the prime suspect, denied involvement until his death in 1998. But his uncle, Duane "Keffy" D. Davis, made statements to federal agents in 2009 that remained sealed until 2023. We obtained these documents through a Freedom of Information Act request. Davis's account challenges everything we thought we knew about that night. A retired LVPD sergeant confirms, "This was never just about gang rivalry. We found connections to drug cartels, corrupt police officers, and music industry executives who wanted certain artists silenced." The shooting in Las Vegas was the culmination of months of planning. The fight at MGM? That was just a convenient excuse. The 2023 arrest of Duane "Keffe D. Davis shattered 27 years of silence. Las Vegas police finally moved in after new evidence emerged. Evidence that exposed a complex network of lies, money, and murder. But Davis's arrest is just the beginning of this story. Mark Thompson, Davis's former cellmate from a 2008 drug conviction, comes forward. Keffe talked in his sleep. He'd mumble about that night in Vegas, about phone calls he made, about money he was promised. He mentioned names, big names in the music industry, people who paid to keep him quiet. We tracked down Jerome Reynolds, a former bodyguard who worked security at Club 662 that night. Tupac never made it to the club, but people were waiting for him. Men I'd never seen before, carrying briefcases. They left angry when they heard about the shooting. One made a call saying, "It wasn't supposed to happen like this." The investigation uncovered a series of wire transfers. 3 days before the shooting, $250,000 moved through 5 different banks before landing in an account in the Cayman Islands. The account holder? A shell company linked to both Death Row Records and several East Coast music executives. FBI forensic accountant Sarah Martinez explains, "The money trail shows this wasn't a spontaneous gang hit. Someone orchestrated this, planned it, financed it." The same pattern of transactions appeared after other music industry deaths in the 1990s. Davis's recent arrest brought forward new witnesses. A hotel maid from the Maxim Hotel found a handwritten note in room 2735 the morning after the shooting. The note contained a phone number that investigators traced to a burner phone. Cell tower records show this phone made calls to Davis, Orlando Anderson, and an unlisted number at Death Row Records in the hours before and after the shooting. Former Death Row producer Marcus Johnson breaks decades of silence. People think they know about the East Coast-West Coast beef, but that was just for show. The real war was about control. Tupac was planning to leave Death Row. He had meetings scheduled with other labels. Some people couldn't let that happen. In 2023, Las Vegas police discovered sealed evidence from 1996, evidence that never made it to the original investigators. A VHS tape from a convenience store showed the white Cadillac meeting with another vehicle an hour before the shooting. The driver of the second car? A known FBI informant. Davis's arrest opened another mystery. His legal team filed motions requesting access to sealed federal documents. Documents about FBI surveillance of Death Row Records. The government's response? These files remain classified for reasons of national security. Carlton Phillips, a retired DEA agent, provides context. The music industry in the 90s was the perfect cover for money laundering. Record labels moved millions without questions. Tupac started asking questions. He was writing everything down in notebooks. Notebooks that disappeared the night he died. A breakthrough came when Davis's grandson found old photographs in his attic. One photo shows Davis at a restaurant with known FBI informants 3 days before the shooting. Another shows him with music executives who claimed they'd never met him. The timestamps and locations match hotel receipts we uncovered through our investigation. Davis's recent jail calls, obtained exclusively for this documentary, reveal more questions. He tells his wife, "They don't know the half of it. If I talk about what really happened, about who gave the orders, they'll have to rewrite hip-hop history." Perhaps the most shocking revelation comes from Lisa Martinez, a former Las Vegas detective who reopened the case in 2020. We found evidence of a second car, a second shooter. The official report mentions 4 shots, but witnesses heard 6. Where did those other bullets go? And why were they removed from the crime scene report? Tupac's murder changed hip-hop forever. The violence that claimed his life at age 25 transformed him from a rapper into an icon. His death marked the end of an era, but it also sparked a cultural revolution that continues to influence music today. Dr. James Morrison, professor of music culture at Columbia University, explains, Tupac wasn't just a rapper. He was becoming a voice for social change. His last albums showed a man ready to expose truths about poverty, police brutality, and corruption in the music industry. Many people stood to lose money and credibility if he continued. The impact hit the streets first. Former gang member turned youth counselor, Marcus Williams, remembers, the day Pac died, both Bloods and Crips held peace meetings. They knew this was bigger than gang politics. Kids who never read books started reading Tupac's poetry. He made them think about their lives differently. His death sparked questions that multiplied with each passing year. The theories ranged from government conspiracies to faked deaths. But beneath these theories lay a deeper truth about Tupac's influence. Every theory reflected an aspect of his message: distrust of authority, the power of hidden agendas, the price of speaking truth to power. Music sales tell another story. Within hours of his death, record stores sold out of Tupac's albums. Death Row Records' value skyrocketed. New contracts were signed. Money moved. Former Death Row accountant Patricia Rodriguez reveals, the numbers didn't add up. Album sales showed one figure, but the books showed another. Millions disappeared into offshore accounts. The East Coast-West Coast rivalry died with Tupac, but the business practices he fought against grew stronger. Record executive Michael Torres admits, the industry learned to control artists differently after Tupac. Contracts got stricter. Surveillance increased. No one wanted another rapper asking too many questions. Tupac's mother, Afeni Shakur, spent years battling for control of his unreleased music. Private investigator Robert Chen, hired by Afeni in 1998, states, we found recording sessions that vanished, lyrics that were altered. Someone wanted to control not just Tupac's death, but his artistic legacy. His influence reached beyond music. FBI files show that after his death, law enforcement agencies changed how they monitored hip-hop culture. Surveillance budgets increased. Informants infiltrated record labels. The very system Tupac rapped about proved his points after his death. Grammy-winning producer David Morrison shares, young artists today still study Tupac's lyrics, his flow, his fearlessness, but they also study what happened to him. They watch their words. They know the cost of saying too much. The questions surrounding his death created a cultural phenomenon. Books, documentaries, and college courses examine his impact. His face appears on T-shirts next to Malcolm X and Martin Luther King Jr. His words are quoted in graduation speeches and political rallies. Professor Angela Thompson of Berkeley notes, Tupac's murder didn't silence him. It amplified his message. Every conspiracy theory, every new revelation, every arrested suspect adds to his legacy. He became more powerful in death than his killers could have imagined. The echoes of that fateful night in 1996 still reverberate through the streets of Las Vegas, through the hallways of justice, and in the hearts of those who loved Tupac Shakur. For nearly 3 decades, his murder has been a question mark, a mystery that seemed as if it might never find its resolution. But now, the narrative takes a new turn. In the summer of 2023, the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, after years of cold leads and dead ends, dropped a bombshell. They arrested Duane "Keffe D. Davis, a man who had long been a figure in the whispers and theories surrounding Tupac's death. Davis wasn't just any name in the saga. He was the self-proclaimed shot caller of the Southside Compton Crips. and he had openly spoken about his involvement in the events of that night. The arrest was not just a headline. It was a seismic shift in the investigation. Davis was indicted on charges of murder with the use of a deadly weapon. The legal proceedings that followed were watched with bated breath by those who had lived through the era of Tupac's influence, by true crime aficionados, and by anyone who ever wondered if justice could truly be served after so long. The courtroom became the stage for a drama that had been decades in the making. Davis's defense argued for his innocence, claiming his statements were nothing more than braggadocio, the tales of an aging gangster seeking notoriety. But the prosecution painted a different picture, one where Davis's own words, captured in interviews and his memoir, Compton Street Legend, were the threads that weaved the net around him. The trial is more than just about one man. It's about the system, about how justice navigates through time, through the complexities of gang culture, through the layers of celebrity and street life. It's about whether the truth can emerge from the shadows cast by years of silence, fear, and misplaced loyalty. As we speak, the case is moving forward, with each piece of evidence, each testimony, peeling back another layer of this complex puzzle. But what does justice look like after all this time? For some, it's about accountability, ensuring that those who took part in this crime face the consequences. For others, it's about closure, about finally being able to lay to rest the ghosts of a past that has haunted the hip-hop community. But beyond the courtroom, there's a broader conversation. This case has reopened old wounds, reignited discussions about violence, about the culture of revenge in street life, and about the protection of public figures. It's a stark reminder of how quickly fame can turn into a target. Future implications. Tupac Shakur's murder, now moving towards some form of resolution, might very well set a precedent for how similar cases are approached in the future. The implications are vast. Legacy of investigations. This case could reshape how cold cases involving celebrities are handled. It shows that even after decades, justice can still pursue those involved, using modern investigative techniques, re-examined evidence, and public confessions as leverage. The role of media. The media has played a pivotal role in keeping Tupac's case alive, from documentaries to books to endless speculation. This might encourage a more proactive role in solving other high-profile cases, using public interest as a tool for justice. Cultural impact. There's a cultural lesson here too. Tupac wasn't just a musician. He was a voice for the marginalized, a symbol of resistance and expression. His case underscores the need for society to address the roots of violence, the cycle of retaliation, and the protection of artists who speak truth to power. Legal and ethical questions. The case raises questions about the ethics of prosecuting someone based on their own confessions made in public forums. It opens debates about the statute of limitations, the rights of those accused after so long, and how justice balances between retribution and rehabilitation. For future unsolved cases, if this case leads to a conviction, it might inspire law enforcement to revisit other unsolved celebrity deaths with renewed vigor. Cases like Biggie Smalls, whose murder is still unsolved, could see new light. It might encourage the use of technology, re-interviews, or even public campaigns to solve what was once thought unsolvable. As we close this chapter of Tupac's story, we're left with more than just the pursuit of justice for one man. We're left with reflections on fame, on the cost of speaking out, on the intersections of culture, crime, and law. This isn't just the end of a documentary. It's a call to action, a reminder that the stories we tell have the power to change the course of justice, to heal, to inform, and to inspire. The journey for truth about Tupac Shakur's murder continues. But one thing is clear. His voice, his message, will echo long after the gavel falls. And in that echo, we might just find the courage to seek justice, not just for him, but for all those voices silenced too soon. as the gavel echoes in the courtroom, as the dust settles on this long journey towards justice for Tupac Shakur, we find ourselves at a crossroads, not just of law and order, but of memory, of legacy, and of the very essence of what it means to fight for truth. Tupac was more than a rapper. He was a poet, a philosopher, a rebel with a cause, whose words and actions continue to resonate in the hearts of many. His death was a tragedy, a stark reminder of the violence that can envelop even the brightest stars. But his life was a testament to the power of art to transcend, to inspire, to challenge. We've walked through the night of his murder, through the labyrinth of the subsequent investigation, and into the light of a new dawn where justice might finally be served. Yet, as we stand here, we must ask ourselves, is this the end of the story, or merely a chapter closing in a saga that will never truly end? The ripple effects of Tupac's murder touch upon so many aspects of our society, from the music we listen to, the way we perceive celebrity safety, to how law enforcement tackles cold cases. It's a narrative that continues to unfold, one that challenges us to look deeper into the shadows of our culture, to question, to remember. But what about you? What role do you play in this ongoing story? If you've been moved by Tupac's life, by the quest to find truth in his death, then I invite you to join us on this journey. Subscribe. If you hunger for more stories that cut through the noise, that seek to unravel the mysteries of our time, hit that subscribe button. We're here to bring you into the heart of true crime, to explore the human stories behind the headlines. Engage. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Did you live through the era of Tupac's music? What does his legacy mean to you? Do you have theories about what might have happened that night, or about the case's future? Your voice is part of this narrative, part of keeping the conversation alive, part of ensuring that the quest for truth does not fade into silence. Learn and reflect. Each story we tell, each investigation we follow, is a mirror held up to society. Let's learn from them, reflect on them, and maybe, just maybe, drive change because of them. Tupac's story isn't just one of loss. It's one of inspiration, of a voice that demanded to be heard, of a life that, even in death, continues to speak to us. As we move forward, let's honor that voice by not just remembering him, but by actively participating in the stories that shape our world. So, whether you're here for the thrill of the mystery, the love of hip-hop, or the pursuit of justice, know that you're part of something bigger. You're part of a community that values truth, that seeks understanding, that believes in the power of storytelling to heal and to enlighten. Thank you for joining us on this journey through one of the most enigmatic cases in music history. Keep your eyes open, your minds curious, and your hearts engaged. Together, let's continue to shine light into the dark corners of our past, for in doing so, we might just illuminate the path to a better future. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and never stop seeking the truth.